Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Eragel, and today I'm gonna go over two of the most important systems in Circuits and Shield for customization and upgrading of your in-game character. Items and augments. A lot of new players are jumping into the game and thinking there's a lot to learn, and they would like to be more prepared to jump into their first game and be up to speed and not have to figure out everything while they're testing the game for the first time. I'm gonna try to help with that. Let's jump into it. So, as I said, the two systems I'm gonna be reviewing today are augments and items, and we're gonna start with augments. Augments are little tweaks you apply generally to your spell. They are character specific for the most part and spell specific usually too. They are just little effects you add on top of the regular effect of your spell in most cases. You get augments at level 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. And you have 4 different pools of augments. You have a different pool at level 1, 3, 5, and 7, and then you come back to the first pool of augments at level 9, then the second at 11, and so on. Which means from each pool of augment, you're gonna be able, over the course of the game, to grab 2 augments. How does that work? Well, very simply put, at the start of the game, you're gonna be level 1. You can already press Control, and you're gonna see this list on the left side of your screen, showing the augments available to your character. In this case, I am playing Vexa support, so the augments I get will be specific to Vexa support. Don't worry, you don't need to know all of the augments, and I'm not gonna go over all of the augments in this video. I'm going to do a series trying to go over some different augment and item builds for different characters in the future. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you won't miss future videos that could help you starting in the game. I'm also gonna put probably a link to the playlist at the end of the video if you want to check that out. But for now, I'm just gonna go over like the system in general. So at level 1, in the case of Vexa, I like Speed Bind, which speed up allies and snare enemies with Gravity Bind. So the right mouse button of Vexa support. It's just to give you a little bit of context, the right mouse button, Gravity Bind, is a skill shot. You aim it, you throw it, and it heals allies and damages enemies. But if you choose to grab Speed Bind, on top of this regular effect, you're also going to be able to speed up allies or snare enemies on hit. So that's pretty interesting. So you just tweak your spell, you just make it a little bit more effective at specific things. Augments are great to adapt to your game, to adapt to the situation, make your character play in a way that is more useful in a specific game. If you need a bit more, well, if you need to speed up allies, Speed Bind might be just the thing for you. If you have allies that have melee range and need to run very fast to the enemy team, Speed Bind might just be the choice you want to grab. If you need more displacement, Pulsate might be what you want to choose, because it makes Vex's E the anti-vac, which is a wave around Vexa that pushes back enemies. It makes it detonate a second time after 2 seconds, which means you get twice as much displacement capacity. So each game you're going to be able to say, well, this game I would rather have something like this, or I would rather have more of that. So it's really a system for upgrading of your character and your spell, but mostly customization and a way to adapt to the game. So in this case, let's say I'm level 1, I want to grab an augment, I'm gonna grab Pulse It. Now for Vexa support, it's very easy because there is not a lot of augments right now, so you can just grab the ones that are not placeholders. But let's see here, we grab those at level 3, 5 and 7, and then at level 9 you see we come back to the first pool of augments we had. So we come back, and I grabbed Pulse Hit already, but if I say, oh well, Speedbind does look pretty interesting in this game, well, I can now grab it at level 9, and the same goes for level 11, 13 and 15, where you're gonna go back to the first pools of augments once again. Just a little note on augments. Some augments are shared between different characters because they are not ability specific. They tend to be more rare. You're gonna have mostly character specific augments, but some are shared, like Genghis Khan at the bottom here at level 9 and 1. Genghis Khan is not something that's gonna tweak a spell, but just give your character a little boost, so that's shared between different characters. If that's something you like, you might want to take it even if you're playing different characters. So that does it for augments. Once again, I'm not going over every augment, I'm just trying to explain the system a little bit. If you're interested to learn more about different augments for different champions, make sure you watch the playlist I'm gonna do about that in a very short while probably. But with that, let's just go into the second system I want to present today. Items, very important. If you have played MOBAs before, you are probably familiar with some kind of system for items. So to open the shop, you're gonna want to press P or click on the gold icon at the bottom left right here, and you will be presented with the shop. So let's present a little bit what items do before we jump into the way it works. Items will 99% of the time have a passive effect. There's only one, right now there's only one exception that only has an active effect, but I'm not going over that. So they have a passive effect. They make you better at one thing in particular. Maybe it's applying a debuff while you attack someone. Maybe it's making your attacks create a zone, an area of effect of damage when they hit something like that. So they give you a specific effect that will make your character just a bit more effective at what they do. And they also provide a stat bonus, so an increase of a specific stat, or sometimes, most of the time actually, 2 stats to the items. There are 7 stats your item can affect, and we'll go over them quickly right now. The first 4 stats you can affect with an item are more defensive stats. The first one being health. So with an item that increases health, you simply gain more hit points. You are more resistant. You're gonna take longer to be killed, basically. So very good for tanky characters or characters that want to stay in the battle a bit longer. And the second stat is very closely related to it, is health regen. Health regens provide characters with passive healing over time. It's very minimal, it's not a lot, but over time you're going to be able to just passively regain some health without having to cast healing spells or grabbing fountains or whatever would give you health. You just all the time regain some health passively. The third stat we're gonna see, the third stat you can gain with an item is defense. Very defensive stat, of course. Defense, I am not a dev, so I may get some of these details wrong, but I believe defense simply reduces the damage you take from any incoming source proportionally to how much you have. So if you have a lot of defense, you might reduce by a certain percentage the damage you take from any source, I do believe. So there's no distinction in Edenbrawl right now, at least. That might change, but there's no distinction between auto attacks or spells or some kind of spell power, attack power, whatever. There's no distinction here, and defense is just going to reduce the damage you take. Our last defensive stat is kind of an aggressive one. It's lifesteal. Lifesteal will allow you to gain some health back when you deal damage to an opponent. So the more lifesteal you have, the more health you're gonna gain when you deal damage. I say it's defensive because clearly it helps you stay alive by providing more health, but it's definitely more aggressive because you want to deal damage to benefit from lifesteal. Lifesteal in items is often coupled to our first really more aggressive stat, not offensive necessarily, but definitely not a defensive stat like what we had before. Lifesteal is often coupled to power in these items. Power is a kind of the mirror effect of defense. It's instead of reducing incoming damage, it's gonna increase the damage you deal. But I believe, and I am almost certain of that, will also increase the healing you do. So it's not only offensive, it can also be very defensive, but it's simply, I believe I can word it like this: it increases any numbered effect from your spells. If it's a number of damage, it's going to increase it. If it's a number of healing, it's going to increase it. I believe the same goes for shields. If it's a numbered effect from a spell, I believe it's going to increase it. Don't take my word for it. I'm not a dev, I don't have the details, but from the talks I've had with the dev team, for now, I believe this is correct information. Our penultimate stat is cooldown reduction. Anyone who's familiar with MOBAs or any game that has abilities is probably familiar with this term. Cooldown reduction will basically let you cast your spells faster. When you cast a spell, there's a certain duration in which you cannot cast it again. That's the cooldown. With cooldown reduction, this cooldown is going to be shorter, which means you're going to be able to cast the spell again faster. This is a stat that is usually recommended to more traditionally spellcasting characters. In this case, Vexa support is one, and you can see both her recommended items provide some cooldown reduction. That's it for cooldown reduction. And now the last stat you can affect with an item is movement speed. This one, I believe, very self-explanatory. Movement speed, if you increase it, you're gonna go faster, you're gonna move faster. This one is usually more useful for characters who are melee range or close range in combat, because they need to get to their target faster. It will reduce the risk of being kited by an enemy. It will let you escape from dangerous situations more easily. So movement speed usually for more melee ranged character. So these are the 7 stats you can affect with items. Some of these stats, let's go quickly, let's just see where you can find them. So health and health regen you can find on Vigor. Defense you could find in Fortify and Thorns. Lifesteal you can find in Executioner's Force, Marked for Death, and Siphon, which is kind of the standard for lifesteal. Power is in a lot of items. Cooldown reduction also in a few items. Detonate and Glacial are the ones recommended for Vexa in this case, and movement speed in Energized and Friction Force. You can find them. I'm not gonna go over all of these items. Once again, just check out the playlist I'm gonna do about those. I'm gonna try to do probably just a playlist of shorts for items. I'm just gonna go over one item at a time, tell you what they're useful for, what characters could benefit the most from them, and possibly what build they would fit into also. So that does it for a bit like how items work. I just want to go over how the shop works before I finish this video. So the shop, you have an amount of gold which you acquire by just general progress in the game. I believe kills provide some gold, just every round will provide some gold also. But you have an amount of gold, and when you buy an item you can see the price below the item. Right now there's not much balancing done, so every item is 1400 gold except for one that's 1500 gold for some reason. Glacial, I don't know if it's so powerful that it would deserve a higher cost than the others, but for now it's the only one that has a different cost. So if you want to choose an item, you can simply double click on it or click purchase. So let's say I want to grab Vigor right now, I'll purchase that. And now let's just fill it with some items I've talked about. So I've talked about Thorns for defense, I've talked about Siphon, and let's say Cleanse Force, which is a weird item that only has an active effect. So you have 4 open slots, so you can have 4 different items at a given time. Now you have your 4 items. When you have an item, you benefit from its base effect right away, but you can also upgrade it. To upgrade an item, very simple, you can just click right there to upgrade it. Upgrading it will increase the stat bonus you get from it. I believe it doubles it. I haven't checked it for every item, but I'm pretty sure at least most of these items, some of these items, you get twice as much of a bonus to stat if you upgrade it, and you also increase the passive effect from it, or the active effect in the case of Cleanse Force and Immolation. So upgrading it will just make the benefits higher from that specific items. So let's say I wanted to increase Vigor because I want to be more tanky. I could do that. Now, there is also a way to sell an item. If you went with your build and you bought something and you go like, you know what, Thorn, not as useful as it could be, really, I would prefer to have something like Immolation. Well, you can sell it. Just select it and click on sell. You have to know though, you will only recover half of the cost of the item when you sell it, which means selling it right now would bring me to only 1200 gold, which wouldn't be enough to buy Immolation. So maybe not the best deal you get, but at some point, if you do want to switch up an item, or simply if you want to open a slot because maybe you already have the gold needed but you filled up your slot with items you don't really need anymore, well, selling might be the idea for you. And there you go, you have now an open slot which you could fill with any items you would have enough gold for. So I do believe that's it for items. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're a new player, I hope this was clear enough that you feel comfortable jumping into a game. If you want to know more about different builds, if you want to know more about different items, I am gonna go over that in future videos. So once again, you can subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss it, and you can also click on the playlist that's gonna be at the end of the video, because I'm probably going to do that very soon, so the playlist might already be there if you want to check it out. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. And with that, I'm gonna see you in a future video. See you next time.